right, thank you so much for coming back so swiftly after lunch. I think you made it back even before me. You can really tell you're in Switzerland when people are there before the host. Thanks so much for being here once again. We have an amazing panel here today, moderated by Nikita. And hiring in crypto, I think, is a struggle for 99% of us. So yeah, really looking forward to hearing what the audience has to say. So thank you. I'll let you take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Very nice to meet you. We'll start off with some quick introductions on our panel, which today is on hiring in crypto. As we just heard, it is a very tough task hiring in crypto, and let's see if you guys agree with me. But for a quick way of introduction, I'll begin and then we can go through the panelists. My name is Nikita Sachdev. I'm the CEO and founder of LunaPR and Luna Media Corporation. We're headquartered in Dubai with offices in Miami, Singapore, and maybe Zug very soon. We've been in the space since 2017. We're a leading and award-winning PR marketing agency and media company. We've worked with 600 clients since 2017. We work on PR and communication strategies. We also acquired the franchise for Cointelegraph Middle East last year. Middle East is a fantastic region, I believe, and we're proud to be bringing crypto media into the region. I was also the host of CNBC Arabia's first ever Web3 show, which I also produced, called On the Chain, hitting 50 million homes. And personally, I've scaled my business in the last 3 years from 5 employees to 100. So I definitely understand the challenges of hiring in crypto. I'm excited to hear about you guys as well, and then we'll kick off the panel.
Okay, so let me start. First, thanks a lot for having me. Great event. So my name is Philippe Reynier. I was until recently the head of digital strategy of UBS, and I've joined end of last year Sheffield Haworth to be the global head of fintech. So for those of you who don't know Sheffield Haworth, we're a global executive search firm. Initially, we're financial services specialists, but we expanded progressively in tech, and fintech is a very important topic for us. We're headquartered in London, but we have offices pretty much around the world, very active in other regions like the US, which is our biggest market. And we work with executive management teams of large financial institutions and fintech to find their next CXO, managing directors, EVPs, etc. And how is that related to crypto? Well, one of the focus areas of the fintech practice I'm responsible for is crypto. So we work with crypto market makers, digital asset custodians, centralized and decentralized exchanges, foundations, etc. And well, quite successfully so far. So that's us.
Super. I am Stephanie Hurry. It's a pleasure to be here today. I work for a company called Crypto Finance. If you haven't heard of us before, we're a subsidiary of Deutsche Börse. So quite interesting being a crypto company that belongs to a large traditional financial market infrastructure player. I head up the sales team within Crypto Finance, which means I talk to a lot of banks and asset managers around how they can offer crypto and digital asset services to their clients. And I'm a little bit of an outsider really on the panel today because I don't have any specific recruitment experience, but much like Nikita, I have the practical experience from a business perspective. So I joined Crypto Finance as employee number 30 approximately. We've grown to 120 people, and I've built out the business development function within Crypto Finance. So I've done a fair amount of recruitment, and I think that probably my main claim to fame or reason why you should listen to me is because I have a fantastic team. So I at least did a good job with that. But passing over to Dorthe.
Thank you very much. And there's no such thing as an outsider here. Leaders like you happen to be my main important key stakeholder in this process. So I think that it's very important if you can complement whatever Philippe, Julie, and I are actually talking about in this forum. So thank you for being here. So my name is Dorthe Jung Habersatter. Actually, it's much longer, but I wanted to keep it short. I am privileged and honored to head the people and talent team at Sygnum, the world's first digital asset bank. Before joining, which I did slightly a bit over a year ago, so still adapting, still learning, still familiarizing myself with the new terminology that I'm constantly being confronted with in this new industry. I spent roughly 20 years in more traditional financial industry, heading several or spanning over several HR roles, starting from talent development into organizational development, HR partnering, and HR strategy, and now being privileged to try to live the purpose of enabling our leaders and our Sygnumers to be better versions of themselves each and every day they come to work. So I'm happy to hand over to you.
Thank you. My name is Julie Samuel, and I lead executive recruiting at Chainalysis, which I don't think is an unknown name here, but just in case, we do blockchain analytics. I have been in recruiting for quite some time at this point. Prior to Chainalysis, I spent a little time at Slack, before that Google, and prior to that Citibank. And then before that, I was a 6th grade teacher, so a bit of a different background there. Very excited to be here.
Wow, amazing. Thank you, guys. Very diverse panel today, so I'm sure we'll get some valuable insight. So to begin with, I want to talk about the process of hiring in crypto in particularly, because when I started off early on in 2017, there weren't many crypto-focused recruitment firms, so I had to use platforms like Indeed and I guess LinkedIn for hiring. What are some of the best routes to hire in the space, and what are the pros and cons, would you say?
I can start. So obviously, I'm going to give the perspective of recruiting executives, because that's what we specialize on. But I think that should be quite reflective of the general trends in the crypto industry. So how do we source and recruit the best candidates for our clients? I think the first thing that is quite important is to have ongoing transparency about what's going on in the market. So in all the crypto verticals we're interested in, so the ones I was mentioning before, crypto market making, digital asset custody, etc. We try to make sure that we stay very close from all the target companies that could be, target companies in the case of those searches. So we understand those companies, their strategy, how they're structured, their org charts, their key executives. We develop relationship with them, so we know their personal circumstances as well, which is a bit the starting point. And I think that kind of market intelligence and research that we developed in that space is quite unique. That's not me saying it, but like what I hear from our clients. And then basically what that allows us to do is whenever we get a mandate for a search, we can sort of hit the ground running from the moment where the contract is signed. And then the executive search process is similar in the crypto world and in the non-crypto world, but the logic is a bit the following one. We would always start by developing a long list of candidates based on our pre-existing research, obviously, but what we do is tailored, so there's just a certain point beyond which we cannot only rely on pre-existing research. So we would really map the whole market for our clients. We were trying to come up with left field candidates that are, that we sort of discuss to provoke thinking, to challenge the thinking of our client, potentially to unearth pools of talents that our clients might have not been thinking of. And then it's about approaching and qualifying the right candidates in the right way. And then, while doing this, we run competency-based interviews, and there are specific methodologies to do it. We assess fit, culturally, content-wise, and obviously there's a component of what we do that is about convincing, those executives that they're fit for the opportunity that our clients are offering. And then, with all that work, we get to a point where we have a short list that we will present to our clients and support the rest of the recruitment process until the onboarding of the right candidate. So that's a bit the logic.
What about you guys? I mean, what do you feel is the best route in your industries or in your companies to hire? Is it through working with a recruitment agency? Is it doing it in-house on your own? Is it both combined? How do you find your talent?
I think it varies a little bit about what kind of role you are assessing for, you're searching for. So we do a combined recruiting approach. In this case, sometimes we are relying on recruitment experts, and sometimes we rely on our own in-house recruiting capabilities. However, more importantly, also to be visible in the market, to anticipate the trends, to follow the industry, and to make use of the platforms available, such as Discord, GitHub, attending crypto events, and also holding our own events, right? And really also utilizing and activating our internal network and external networks to act as ambassadors and to promote Sygnum towards an audience of interest, right? And as Philippe also said, well, the traditional recruiting is posting a job position and then review and assess candidates as you receive them in your application. And hence, I also think here it's utterly important to take into consideration the experience that you give the candidate along this process, that you are being very proactive, that you are establishing a relationship and connection and dialogue immediately with the candidates, and yet that you act fast also due to this current market condition, not to lose the talents again that you are actually very interested in. So yeah, in combination, we combine both approaches. It depends a little bit on whether we feel confident enough to initiate the recruiting process our own in-house, or whether we want to rely on additional expertise from external recruiters and or recruiter companies as such.
And what about the other way around? How do talents come in the spotlight?
I can probably start with that. So I think from a business perspective, and particularly within sort of the sales organization, we meet a lot of people, at events like this within the industry. When I joined Crypto Finance, for example, we didn't have an HR team. So a lot of the recruitment that we did was based on networks, people that we met at events. So it's really sort of establishing either direct personal connections or actually getting referrals from other people within the industry. And I suppose how do they get in the spotlight is, you hear about them from a reputational perspective, or you know people personally, and that saves you a lot of the filtering and the challenging process of finding the right fit that Dorthe mentioned.
I want to go back to something, Philippe, you were talking about on recruitment. A lot of companies coming out of crypto are still startups. How feasible is the route you talked about?
You mean how feasible is it to work with an executive search firm when you're in early stage? So
Yes.
Honestly, it really depends. The first element is obviously there's a cost to it. So, I think the best proxy of whether you're at a stage where it makes sense to use an executive search firm or not is probably how much funding you have. So, there are in some crypto verticals you have. In crypto market making, for instance, you see sometimes seed rounds that are at 50 million, for instance. I'm thinking of Portofino Technologies, for instance, did a seed round last year for 50 million. Obviously, when you have that level of funding, you can use executive search firm from day one. In most cases, when you do seed rounds in other, even outside of crypto, in other fintech verticals like neobanking, for instance, it could be that your first seed round is like 2 million, and then using 10% of that just in executive search fees probably doesn't make sense, So there's this dimension, and probably there's also another dimension which is a bit, to what extent you can use your own network for your first recruitments, and to what extent, at some point that's not enough. And very often what you see, I'm thinking of robo-advisors, for instance, in Switzerland, they would start using their own network, but often they do like local recruitments or recruit former colleagues, etc. And from the day they want to really deliver on the hockey stick in terms of revenues that they promise to their investors, and that requires going outside of Switzerland to Germany or to Asia or to the US, then you can't rely on your own network. And given that having the right senior talent is so critical to be able to develop on your strategic to deliver on your strategic roadmap, you probably don't want to just pick someone randomly in a market that is on the other side of the world, and you might want to rely on the expertise because in our case we've helped European fintech expand in the US, American fintechs expand in Europe, And in both cases, we know the market very well. And those decisions are so critical to deliver on the strategy. And I can tell you, I used to be a strategist before, that I think there's a point where it really makes sense to outsource it. So obviously not everyone would agree, but that's my conviction and also the reason why I moved from strategy to executive search.
Right. All right, well, the next question I want to ask is some of the trends that you're noticing in the recruitment, staffing, and even talent space recently. Geographical locations or hiring trends or where the talent is coming from. Just an example is in the past couple of months, the fee for developers has shot up because of how many blockchain protocols there are out there. People are venturing out into different countries to look for blockchain developers, such as in India. There's now like so many developer recruitment agencies coming out. So what are some of the trends that you guys are noticing in your respective companies?
Yeah, so Chainalysis is about 900 people today, which means we've scaled a lot over the last few years. And some of the challenges that come with that is the talent might not exist at all in the world, or if it does, it probably doesn't exist at scale. And so the question becomes, how do you create a talent pool that doesn't yet exist anywhere? How many of you are hiring managers in the room or have hired for your teams? So the most challenging conversation that I have is, I can't get you what you want. And so the conversation can actually be very productive, which is, let's talk about your team. What do you already have on your team? What skill sets exist? And then it's, what gaps can we fill? If you have people in banking, can we get someone who does SaaS? If you have people in one region, maybe we can find someone in another. And so to your point, like, you can look somewhere, but if at the scale we're hiring it doesn't exist, you're then creating the talent pool. And you can then open it up to various levels of diversity of experience, perspective, thought, gender, and find pockets of talent that might not exist.
That's a very good point. Yeah, the space is still so new that sometimes the talent is not out there. And even personally at LunaPR, we've sometimes hired people. It's interesting because just like the internet, it's implemented into so many other industries. So often there are companies that are looking for someone with Web3 experience and the other aspect, Web3 and property, Web3 and insurance, Web3 and, for our case, PR. And it's sometimes you have to choose one or the other. And I always feel, in my case, it's the PR skill that I can find much easier than the Web3 skill. And so internally, we hold Web3 courses to teach our PR and comms specialists what the technology is all about.
I'd actually love to share a complimentary story to that. I had the pleasure recently of meeting the Chief Talent Officer for Activision Blizzard, which is the game company behind Candy Crush and Diablo and all these sort of exciting things. And their approach, I thought, was really fantastic in that they've actually mapped, they've gone back into their internal organization, taken a look at who their top performers are, so highest bonuses, career progression, etc. And they've mapped that back to the CV characteristics that they looked at the beginning in the hiring process, and they've been able to identify what are the predictors of success and actually what aren't the predictors of success. And then you open up your pool much wider because you're not necessarily trying to hire for a specific skill that's not an indicator. And they also then looked at what they can train internally and what they have to hire for. And my key takeout as an extrovert that works with a lot of software developers is one of the key predictors of success for software developers was management experience. And one of the reasons for that they uncovered was actually social skills and ability to work within a team. And after they'd sort of discovered that, or they come to that finding, they then took a deliberate approach to building up the teamwork skills like within the organization. So I think that kind of creative approach was really interesting.
Maybe to your question on trends, I can give a bit of an overview. I think obviously the main trend, at least my conviction is a bit that crypto adoption is the long-term trend, and that obviously that will drive hiring. So we're very positive on that. On the short to mid-term, there are things that might have a bit of an impact and make the path a bit, not so smooth. And mostly three things: regulation, fundraising activity, generally speaking, and institutional adoption. And I know that the last topic has been discussed quite a bit this morning in another session. But in terms of regulation, it's obviously very polarized, and I won't say anything new by saying that basically you have essentially two poles. You have the US on one side, where it's not so easy for a lot of crypto companies, and the rest of the world with major centers like here in Switzerland, Europe with MiCA, the UAE, that are much more crypto friendly. And basically that drives talent flows massively. So we have lots of clients in the US, either traditional financial institutions or crypto native companies that often tell us the same thing, which is a bit, we have a great product roadmap, but we're not too sure whether what we have on the roadmap is going to be legal or at least allowed in the US in the next 6, 9, 12, 18 months, which obviously forces a lot of them to put things on hold and leads to a lot of talents, leaving voluntarily or not voluntarily those companies. If there's a type of client that is a type of talent that is really in demand in the US right now, it's risk compliance officers. So, that kind of talent, and there's been a lot of talent flows in that space. I think recently Binance announced that they poached the global heads of compliance of Gemini and Kraken. I think that was last year. But so that's for regulation, and obviously in Europe, it's much more crypto friendly, and you see large companies like OKX, Binance, Crypto.com opening their European headquarters actually in Paris mostly. Then in terms of fundraising activity, like any fintech, crypto companies tend to use the fund they raise to hire and to invest in tech. And for the hiring part of it, obviously 2022 and 2023 have not been great. 2021 was obviously much better, but still the right projects can raise funds under the right circumstances and valuations. I think we've seen that with the Series B of Taurus, with the crypto market making fundraising I mentioned of last year. And then the last piece is institutional adoption. And I'm still like a believer that there will never be a mass adoption of crypto if large financial institutions don't embrace crypto. And a lot of them right now, Sheffield Haworth, we work with a lot of very large financial institutions, and with a few exceptions, many of them are a bit stuck in what I call the POC white paper kind of cycle. And the day that changes and they really embrace crypto, I think they can be big employers and hirers of executive talent, and that's probably the main last trend.
Awesome. Yeah, that's very insightful. I guess for my next question, I want to talk about company culture and environment. It's funny because when I spoke to someone about opening up here in Zug, someone said to me, if you have long working hours, forget hiring here because after 4 p.m. no one's going to work. I don't know how true that is, but it's interesting because in Dubai they're so used to working long hours, late nights, but they also want to start late. It's just company culture, and so we've had to kind of adjust our timings in the office based on what works. And initially, even we had to work Sunday through Thursday, and now luckily the UAE has adjusted that, so we were able to ensure we're hitting globally. But in terms of company culture, how important is it for companies to have a strong one internally?
Yeah, so I think a lot has changed over the last couple years. Prior to the pandemic, I think everyone kind of looked to a Google to say that's who we want to be. We want the massage chairs, we want the free lunch, and that was what everybody valued. I think the pandemic changed a lot of that in that people want flexibility, they want work-life balance, they don't necessarily want to be in the office, even if you do get a free massage. And so what we have learned, we've done a few questionnaires, a few studies within Chainalysis, and what we've learned is people really want to make an impact. They want to work at a company that has a mission aligned with their values. And so we've spent more time giving a voice to the employees, letting them tell their story of the impact that they've made, both internally and externally. That helps with retention, it helps with hiring, and making sure that there is that alignment.
Yeah, well, to recite my manager and CEO of Sygnum, so culture eats strategy for breakfast. I think he never misses a moment to re-emphasize that very important message within the company. And hence, yes, exactly as you said, I also think the crypto industry is a very unique culture and in general, and companies often prioritize decentralization, innovation, transparency, much more focused than you may find in other industries. And I truly believe for Sygnumers, but also for potential candidates looking into joining organizations that have a very open and very visible culture, are finding this utterly appealing and are seeking exactly these kind of elements also in order to identify and to be able to truly live their values every day and to be authentically coming and bring the best of themselves into the workplace. And if you find a culture that is embracing diversity and is embracing innovation, different and diversity of thought, you're also able to come into a safe place where you can truly bring your true self to work every day. And I think that's actually also not even a trend, but it's going to be a element that is staying also within the industry.
Do you feel like this aspect of employee sentiment is sometimes underestimated with executives in a company?
I think that, well, I can speak for how I have experienced it, and having been in several places, I do think that there is an increased and high awareness on the importance of culture. I do think that many initiatives are also being designed and enrolled to tackle exactly that topic. But I believe that most crucial part of having a healthy internal culture is also the getting rid of the, how do I phrase that? Allowing your people or your staff members to feel safe enough also to raise criticism in a constructive way, to not be afraid of raising their voice and to placing ideas or observations, and that this is then being appreciated and being welcomed and asked for, right? Because you need to create that safe environment also to create a healthy culture. And I do think there is an increased, well, actually it's also part of my task and my most important task to constantly mirror what I am observing and to reflecting back what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing in order also to anticipate and propose new ways of addressing exactly some of the topics that we may see that our staff members are still struggling with. I do think that would be wrong to say that there is not an intention at executive level around this topic, and that applies, I think, in general to all companies. I see my colleagues are nodding, so I may be touching a relevant point here.
I think, no, exactly. I think the intention is definitely there. I think that what will differentiate like the winning organizations is also in the execution, right? Because, Julie also mentioned like vision and, purpose within an organization. And all of these things are really easy to put on slides. And I think the intention is there, the acknowledgement is there that these things are important, but actually living it within the organization is really important. Like as you said, if you say, oh, we're very open to criticism, and then the first time that somebody puts their hand up in a town hall, they don't get like a good response, then it's, it's not living it. So I think that's where the differentiation will come, which is interesting.
Yeah, pretty agree, and I think this is something we see very much in the executive recruitment process. And that really differentiates DeFi from TradFi. I'm not saying that in TradFi no one cares about culture. That's absolutely not the case. But I think the crypto community is much more mission-driven, much more purpose-driven. And when we're involved in those processes, we disproportionately more often get the question from candidates of, what is the culture like? What are the people like? Do they have high-level principle, or is the organization of the company really organized along those principles, and do they really live those principles? And when we do executive searches for very large banks, I mean, I'm not saying they don't care, but we rarely get the question of, I don't know how Morgan Stanley and Goldman Sachs are different from a culture perspective. Not saying, again, it's not important in TradFi, but it's so disproportionately more important in DeFi that I think it's just a fundamental element for a crypto company to be a successful hire, whether it's executive or non-executive, by the way.
Are you finding that employers are more interested in getting the employees to work in office under the same roof, or is the culture really has it shifted to work from home? Are we over that trend now after COVID, or is this going to be like a long-term way of working?
Well, personally, I think it's there to stay. I think that many employers realized during the lockdown that it is actually possible. And I also think it is an increasing expectation from candidates internationally that remote working is an option. However, there are, of course, some boundaries, especially when you are regulated as we are at Sygnum. So we are trying to offer a more like a hybrid model, also based on the conviction that we do think that interactions in the office, dialogues, and the ability to socialize also have a healthy impact on our staff. So we are aiming more towards a flexible working model where you have the option also to do hybrid working.
But how does it affect productivity? Or do you feel like there's no difference or an improvement even?
I would say it's very individually how that affects in general, right? Because each person acts differently. I can say from earlier experience, when I was not yet with Sygnum, we had situations where we realized that this is not beneficial for a person in terms of productivity being at home 5 days a week. So we appealed and urged the person also to come back into the office to be able to have the social interaction. Personally, I am utterly productive when I work from home because I'm having less disruptions. I can really focus on what I need to produce and I need to deliver. So I think it's very individually. I would not foresee a huge drop in productivity by switching into a more hybrid working model in general. Do you agree?
I think Julie wanted to.
So we moved to a hybrid work environment as well, which basically means if you are near an office, there is an encouragement, not necessarily mandate, that you go to the office 3 days a week and to arrange with your team which days those are so that you get that human interaction. I think there's an acknowledgement that there is a benefit from that interaction that you get in person, but it's not a requirement because you can certainly be more productive from home. The other benefit is you can hire anywhere. And so recognizing that being near an office doesn't mean you have a different mandate from a work perspective, and facilitating a remote environment where whether you're in an office or remote, you have that camaraderie is important. It has to be an active effort. It has to be employee relations groups. It has to be events that take place virtually, and making sure that you are fostering that environment and not just assuming it's going to happen while someone is at their at-home office versus the in-office office.
Right, yeah. The space is very young, and so a lot of the times the talent that comes through is also young. They're the crypto enthusiasts. They understand, albeit in Switzerland, the space seems more sophisticated and more focused on the banking and finance and payment solutions. So you're getting a lot of people from TradFi enter the Web3 space. But in Dubai, for example, in the Middle East, there is a whole host of different kind of a variety of projects, from metaverse to NFTs, where a lot of the times you're dealing with degens who have zero professionalism at all. Those are some of the challenges that I've seen in the space in the Middle East, and even for that matter in Miami, where we have our other office. What are some of the challenges that you're noticing for recruitment in the space, and how do we overcome them?
There is a lot of risk aversion, which I'm sure you all have seen in your hiring efforts. There are a lot of misconceptions about the Web3 and crypto space that make it so that people will not even get on the phone with you when they hear that that is what you're hiring for. And so I think the interesting thing about hiring in this space versus hiring in any other space is we kind of collectively have to recruit together across every company. In traditional finance, you've got Goldman competing against JP Morgan. In tech, you've got Google Cloud competing against AWS. For all of us, we kind of all have to sell the industry as a whole, where it's going, where we think it's going to be, because that is going to create the sentiment across the potential employee landscape that will help everyone. And I think that's really unique.
I can comment a bit on that. I think in the market in Switzerland, DeFi is probably quite institutionalized, and so even when I was at UBS, the people reporting to me had very traditional backgrounds, like consultants from VMBBs, those kind of profiles, and a lot of them were very seriously considering options like Sygnum, Seba, crypto finance, or even I don't know, like getting into crypto. So I think that's sort of easier. The challenge is how you train them, and there are some some crypto companies that have like structured recruitment programs and training programs, etc. It's not the case for most of them, to be honest. And then the other question becomes, how can you safely transition people from TradFi to DeFi and make it work? And it's a challenge. I think it's mostly a cultural challenge, and some of the TradFi executives are ready for it, and we've seen very successful examples, and some are not. And the funny thing is, there are actually businesses and spaces in crypto where you'd better find someone from TradFi. I don't know, like I'm always thinking of a business that is willing to get a license, like a fintech license or a banking license. Having someone who's used to interact with regulators, who's already done it, I mean, it's great. And also who's culturally, interacting in a smooth way with regulators is a great thing. And those guys are often working, those persons are often working in TradFi. So, I think you can create a healthy combination of people that are DeFi natives, plus some transfers from TradFi.
Awesome. Well, thank you. So as we're coming to the end of our panel discussion, I'd like to leave one last note for the audience. If everyone can give one tip to everyone who's hiring in crypto or the Web3 space, what would it be?
I mean, I would strongly suggest every person working today in TradFi to be thinking about crypto. Obviously, we are not at the best moment in the market, but the bear market is not there forever, and I think this is an industry that will offer amazing career opportunities going forward. So I would advise everyone to very seriously consider it.
Maybe a bit of an obvious one, but try and retain people, because especially if you're in a hiring manager position, it can be difficult to find the right people at the moment, so look after the ones you've got.
Yeah, very good one.
Well, I would like to build on that. Thank you for taking my sentence, but no problem. But I think that one key element also in order to retain the talents is really also to make sure already very early in the hiring process that you have a strong focus on a great cultural fit. Someone who is able to identify with the values and the vision and mission and purpose-led person already very early in the process. I do think that that will be critical also for a retention success later on. So that would be my recommendation. Do you have one?
I think in recruiting, we often think our main goal is to sell the opportunity of the company. I would say shift your mindset and make it your goal to educate about the industry, educate about the role and the company, the teams that you have, because even if they're not the right person or don't accept the role, they're likely to educate someone else about what they learned, and that kind of expands the knowledge and expands the talent pools.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I think all those tips combined make a very important factor to keep in mind when hiring anybody in the space, hiring overall even for that matter. Well, thank you so much. I guess we'll be around if you have any questions. Just find us, and thank you. Hope you enjoyed the panel.
We do have time for maybe one question from the audience, if somebody does have a question for any of our panelists, by any chance. All right, well then we'll wrap it up at that. Thank you so much.